Well, hi there, it's Paulie here with our old friend Mr. Snoots. And we're going to talk about ethics again. The ethics of game consumption. So here's the tea, ladies, here's the tea. So, we come up to this again. Can we separate the art from the artist, and should we? I'm going to bracket this with a couple of little pictures and things. I started playing Dungeons & Dragons in 1975. Role-playing games have been a huge part of my life. They are my undying love. I did not ever really play Greyhawk or Blackmoor or anything like that. The campaigns we played, 1976 onwards, were the things that came from the Judges Guild. Here is the first adventure that I ever bought for myself. This is Tegel Manor. You can see it's still here. It's loved, it's played. I do have later production versions, but this is the original. Still played. Wilderlands of High Fantasy was their campaign setting. A remarkably inclusive setting, by the way. And at its heart was the city-state of the Invincible Overlord. This was the first city for a fancy role-playing game ever published. It detailed shops and pubs and temples, and there were sewers, and there were sections of dungeon left, right and centre. There were secret cabals. It was the place that launched so many adventures for us. My first role-playing campaign, my first long campaign, was set there. My character was a female thief called Lucretia. She is still in play today. She became a were-rat and appears as an NPC and as a character in many things, 50 years onwards. Pubs like the Prancing Kyrene, my home away from home. Oddly enough, by the way, an inclusive setting. It wasn't a racist sort of setting the way sort of Gygaxian role-playing was. Orcs and kobolds and goblinoids were not inherently evil. You could find them on the streets. They could be nasty and foul-tempered, but it was a little bit like, say, a frontier town in the early Americas with Native Americans coming into trade and so on. It's like, they're people, they live in the forest, it's going to be dangerous out there, basically, Don't run to the forest and, kick the local Hurons in the nuts. But it was a rich and beautiful setting. I loved it. It means the world to me. Hundreds and hundreds of adventures that I will never forget were started or played out right there in the city-state. I still run it today. So, Goodman Games is going to do a republished version of City-State of the Invincible Overlord. Normally this would be great. Look, my old copies are still here, and I do have digital copies. It's an old thing, it's been scanned all over the place. But, I would have just bought the new one. My favourite thing is back. But now we've got some problems. Because you see, Bob Bledsaw, who was the author of so many of the Judges Guild things back in the day, who ran Judges Guild, he passed on. He was not a personal friend of mine. I corresponded with him as a teenager, and I corresponded with him in later life once or twice. But we liked each other. He was a nice chap. His son and heir, the new Bledsaws, are toxic individuals. Bledsaw Jr. in particular is a white supremacist. He is unspeakably racist. He is a advocate for violence against transgender people. I'm not going to provide you with links to his stuff. Go to N-World and look it up. N-World has chronicled it all. I'm not giving him the traffic. But it is a matter of record. And that's where the ethical problem comes from. Now, Goodman Games has done that centrist thing. They've said, oh, we think there's just too much divisiveness in the world. So we've got to, if you don't build bridges with people, then, we're just not going to get on. So, we should just put aside, we should essentially forget this guy's views and the things that he dedicates himself to pushing. And we should just say, what the hell, let's just be friends. We have to build bridges together. I would say never build a bridge with someone who intends to hang you from it. We're going to look at ethics and separating art from the artist. Ethics are important. Our ethics tell the world all about us. They're important. This isn't cancel culture. This isn't woke. This is being a decent human being, and it is an intellectual process, okay? It's kind of a three-stage test for whether you should be able to divorce the art from the artist. So it's perception, it's profit, and it's platform. The 3 Ps. So, perception. Knowing what you know about a creator now, can you see that toxicity running through their work? And that therefore, essentially, their works are a piece of propaganda, persuading people to a vile point of view. Let's take an example. Let's take Harry Potter with J.K. Rowling. Yes, friends of mine who were huge fans of Harry Potter, in retrospect, now we have seen her racist tweets. Now we've seen her very woman-hating tweets. Now we have seen her life absolutely given over to hatred and misogyny. They can see it running all through the books. It's poisoned the books for them now because they see it. They see the anti-Semitism. They see the racism. And it's like, oh God, how did we not pick that up before? Should kids be reading this? Because it kind of got them to a place of accepting casual racism and so forth. It really did. It was insidious. Check for perception. Look, in the case, I'm just from my point of view, in the case of city-state, as I've said, no, to me it's an inclusive setting. You can go into the Prancing Kyrene and you can hoist a beer with the local orcs, and there's kobold girls dancing on the bar. Fantastic. The little bastards and will rob you blind, and they might stab you in the alley, but they're there as part of the population. Perception for me isn't a problem. Profit. Does the toxic person profit directly from the fruits of that toxicity? If you look at Walsh and Is What Is a Woman, should you buy that film or pay for it? No. It is a pile of obscene lies, and he is profiting from knowingly selling lies. There is no way that you should put money in his direction. Rowling's again. Should you buy that new Harry Potter game? Should you buy the merchandise? Should you support online and purchase products for like the new series? No, you should not. The toxic person will be directly profiting. Putting out a book on how to hate people of colours different from yourself should never be something that rewards you with cash. Not really a problem in this case. Bob's long dead, and not really a toxic property per se. But the last one is platform, and it is the most important. Does the product, does the IP give the person things they can leverage for power? Does it increase their platform and give their voice a further reach? Does it allow them to push their toxic agendas to a wider audience? In this case, I'm going to say yes. You would not have heard of the guys currently running Judges Guild unless they were running an empire based on, Dad's work. You wouldn't care less. You'd have never heard of them. But as the owner of Judges Guild and as the controller of this beautiful IP, now you've heard of them. And now they're there on their platform spreading their message and gathering about them like-minded people who spread their message. There is a movement within old school gaming, OSR, the old school renaissance, which is a recreation of original D&D, a love, if you will, of the original old games. But there is an ultra-right wing to it, shall we say. People who wish to claim it as entirely a white cis het space and will, with great violence, attempt to push out anyone that does not look like them and does not have their sexuality. They claim D&D as their own, built by white men for white men, and no one else is welcome. This sort of thing gives them a rallying point, because they can claim, here's the original campaigns, here's the original adventures, under the banner of a racist, of a white supremacist, of a trans-hating bastard. Look at this. Rally under the banner, boys. Rally under the banner. I would say this fails the platform test. This setting coming out again will help the current IP owner spread their messages of hate. You have to figure out your ethics for yourself, but be very careful. As I said, your ethical stances define you within the world. I would posit that places like Britain and the USA are in the hell they are in right now because there wasn't a culture of intelligent ethical examination. What are my ethics? What does and doesn't do harm? Your ethics are important, and they tell the world about you. When you say, I don't care, I just want to like what I like, I don't care about what the artist or creator or owner of this has as their personal opinion, I just want to buy the thing they've got, you're telling us that there's an acceptable level of that person's hatreds. You're okay. It hasn't turned you off them. You're kind of okay with their stances. You don't care that much. I would posit there is no acceptable level of racism. There is no acceptable level of transphobia. There is no acceptable level of homophobia. Hatred is hatred. And hatred, that's the channel to fascism. Look what's going on now. We faced this problem with Tekkamel when I discovered that the creator of Tekkamel, my personal goddamn mentor from like age 12, 13 onwards through 40, 50 years, that he was one of the key designers of the Holocaust denial movement. That broke my heart. We've been through this before. It's annoying that we have to be through it again. But in the 2 years since I did that last video, look what's happened. As people put ethics last and put hatred first. Take a look at the world now. Ethics are important. Today marks the anniversary of the Nazi destruction of Magnus Hirschfeld's Sexology Institute in Berlin. Just 4 weeks after the Nazis were elected, Nazi students broke into the institute. I've done a video on Magnus Hirschfeld, but he was a groundbreaking sexologist. He was a gay man, but he had broken the earlier bounds of earlier sexologists and had determined that transgenderism was an actual thing. He began working on the psychology of it, the roots of it, what it is, what it does, what you do for a transgender person, how do you make that person's life better. He founded hormone replacement therapy. At that institute, they founded gender reaffirming surgeries. They amassed a huge library of case studies and philosophical material, psychological material, medical material. This was an irreplaceable library that was the foundation research on transgender individuals. The Nazi students broke in, savagely beat all of the staff and smashed the entire place up. 4 hours later, the brown shirts turned up, seized everyone on the site they could. Every person they seized died. Killed in concentration camps for being transgender. They burned the entire library. This was the first big Nazi book burning. This is the one you see. I think, on today of all days, someone saying, I don't care about, I don't care what the producer or something really feels. How much harm can it do to throw money their way? How much harm can it do to increase their platform? On today of all days, yeah. You got a damn cheat, mate. You picked the wrong day for that one. Because there it is right there. That's where it leads. That's why ethics are important. They're important. Alright. I'm going back to design some games. Much love to everyone out there. Look after yourselves. Remember, just think about what you do. That's all. Make sure everything comes from a place of reason. You ain't owning no libs, but you could be wrecking a world. One tiny salami slice at a time. Anyway, cheers. You want to turn it off? He wants to turn